Welcome, everybody, to the October 16th, 2023 Finance Committee meeting. Just a couple of things to start off with. Please make sure your cell phones are either on mute or vibrate. Those planning to make public comment, please do so when I give you the green light and identify yourself for the record, please. Just for the folks on Zoom, Councilman Roybal and Councilman Escobar are here with me in the committee room, and Dr. Aldridge is online, so we're all present. And with that, I will have the Jen read the first item, please.
Number 9, ordinance third reading, creating section 12.04.240 mobile storage containers on public right-of-way permit required of chapter 12.04 street sidewalks and driveways generally of title 12 streets, sidewalks, and public places of the municipal code of the city of Cheyenne, Wyoming, and making a conforming amendment as specified.
Staff report. Is there a staff report?
Go ahead, Mr. Brody. You can unmute yourself.
Mr. Chairman, John Brody, Deputy City Attorney. Just wanted to update the committee since the substitute was adopted at the last council meeting. As the committee will recall, the substitute does 4 things. First, it modifies the advanced time period for which a person must apply for a permit before placing a container on the right-of-way. It changes that from 3 business days to 10 business days. Second, the committee asked that there be a provision inserted that required the person obtaining the container to also have liability insurance for that container. If you look on subsection C on page 1, that is the provision that governs liability insurance. Of note, the amount of liability insurance that's required is within the discretion of the city engineer's office. I figured there may be different circumstances that change the amounts of insurance that may be necessary, so that sort of deference seemed appropriate. Moving to the second page, under subsection H, the committee also asked that an amendment be made that gave the city engineers a bit of waiver authority. Essentially, if someone exceeded the 120-day deadline or time limit, that for good cause, the city engineer can provide additional time. I wasn't provided guidance on how much time the city engineer would be able to grant. So as the substitute is currently structured, he can only grant an additional 60 days. That may be something the committee wishes to change or modify, but 60 days seemed appropriate given the length, keeping the waiver in mind of the entirety of a container being on the street. So I think it's 6 months. And then lastly, the committee asked that the definition of mobile storage container also include roll-off dumpsters. So there's a new subsection J where I just created a definition subsection, and that's where that language is included. I would note that the second renewal for a mobile storage container permit is currently $750. In speaking with the city engineer's office, it's my understanding that it's about $200 to $250 for a mobile storage container per month from the business. However, I don't have any information on how much a roll-off dumpster may cost per month. So that may be something the committee wishes to take into consideration. But with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, John, and thank you for your work on this. I know that those changes were rather substantive, so we certainly appreciate it. Is there any questions for Mr. Brody? No? Is there comments from the public? I see Mr. Cobb approaching.
Good morning, Chairman White and members of the Finance Committee. Tom Cobb, City Engineer. Just for reference and information, 2 items I'd like to add to this. The 3-day window would be more preferable to the storage container folks And again, as I'd stated, in my testimony, we're going to basically make them fill it out there. So it's going to simplify this process a lot. But the 3-day window, I know that you extended it for my benefit, but I was just trying to meet more for what their business model works. So it's usually they end up acquiring these things about 3 days before they need them. So I'm fine with you bringing it back to the 3 days as long as we can keep the process simplified. Okay, that's my first point. And then secondly, I still would like to be able to contact all of these folks before we actually get to your final reading. And I had left on Friday, so I went to go visit my daughter in College Station. I know my job is very important, but I did not have an opportunity to contact the rest of these rollover folks. So they need to be involved in this process. And I hope that some of their testimony would come today, but I would ask that you postpone this for 2 weeks so I can get and rally the troops here to make sure that everyone's involved.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Any other comments from the public? Well, we'll get to Dr. Aldridge when we do comments from the committee. So if there are no other comments from the public, do I have a motion from the committee?
Mr. Chair, move to approve on third and final reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Dr. Aldridge, did you have a comment to make?
I do. Chairman White, through you. I wanted to say, I would be interested to know, I know that the comment was made, these are anywhere from $200 to $250 a month. When I talked with Alco Mobile Storage, that they were running $150 a month. So I find that really interesting that we have an amount floating about of $200 to $250 a month. I would also like to move to make an amendment on 12.04.240B to change that to 3 business days rather than the 10. At the request or at the recommendation of Engineer Cobb.
Okay, we have a proposed amendment to change that section. Was it 12.04.080? Section B?
Actually, I believe that it is 12.04.240.
First page. Okay, my apologies. I was on the wrong page. So there's a proposed amendment to change that section to 3 business days. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded to change that to 3 business days. Is there any comments from the public? Hearing none, comments from the committee.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Roybal.
just a question on that. It says that the person wanting to place a mobile storage container on the right of way shall apply to the city engineer for an encroachment permit no later than 10 business days. If we leave it at 10, does that mean that they have to do that, or why go back to 3 days?
Is there a particular answer for that? Mr. Cobb, you may want to sit closer to the podium. You might be getting some questions here unless you want to get your steps in. I get that.
Chairman White, through you, I would say that you could leave it at the 10 if you so desire. But again, it would be our model that we get it out within 3 to meet their model. So, I mean, either way is fine, whatever your discretion. I understand, Councilman Roybal, why what you say is true. Yes, if you want us to be encouraged to make the 3 days I just want to make sure they know we're committed to it. I think we are. I don't think it's going to be that difficult.
I'm just thinking of extenuating circumstances.
Makes sense. If there's something that happens,
Something that happens, they're not bound by that 3 days.
makes perfect sense.
We're not doing anything redundant.
Any other comments from the committee on the proposed amendment?
I would withdraw the amendment, Chairman White, with that understanding.
Okay. Okay. The proposer of the amendment and the Councilman Escabel, who seconded that amendment, have both agreed to withdraw the proposed amendment. So there is no further action to be. Do we still have to vote on that?
Yeah.
Okay. All All those in favor of the amendment moving forward signify by saying aye. Those opposed?
No,
The amendment is defeated. Proposed amendment is defeated. We are now back on the main motion. Yes, is there a motion to postpone?
Mr. Chair, I had one quick question before we do that.
Go ahead, Mr. Escabel.
So you're saying that it's about 150 to 250 a month to rent a mobile storage container. And that includes having it delivered and picked up, and there's got to be other charges if it's being delivered somewhere else.
Chairman White, through you to Councilman Escobar, he just gave us that as their total number, and it was quite a range as Dr. Aldrich pointed out. The original numbers for the smaller container unit, the larger number that Mr. Brody testified to is the larger unit. There's 20 and 40 footers. So it does include delivery.
Mr. Chair, through you, does anyone, maybe Director Nemechek, know how much it costs to rent the mobile disposal roll-offs?
Vicki Nemechek, Public Works. I don't have that with me, but I think it's about $250 to rent one, and it's not a month, isn't it? A week? It's a week, and the cost is also based on how many dumps. That includes one dump. And then if you have more dumps, you pay for those dumps. So it is quite expensive.
Okay. Good to know.
Other comments? Is there a motion to postpone?
Mr. Chair, I move to postpone for 2 weeks.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to postpone this at the request of the engineer's office. Any comments on the motion to postpone? Hearing none. All those in favor of the recommendation to postpone this item, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? This item moves forward with the recommendation at the next meeting of the governing body to postpone for 2 weeks. Next item, please.
Number 15, resolution requiring a study and submittal of a report to the governing body analyzing the best avenue for transitioning the downtown parking program to a contract or a professional services model.
Staff report.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Seagrave?
Yes, sir. I'm not sure if Attorney Brody wants to do the staff report or if you want me to try to do it. We didn't talk about it.
I'll certainly open it up to either of you. I don't know if Mr.
Okay. I will start.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chair, some of you were probably on the council back in 2015 and 2016 when a study was completed by Kinley Horn on the downtown parking. And in 2016, they made 3 recommendations as to how to properly administer and enforce the downtown parking. In 2016, the governing body determined that the police department should do the enforcement, the city clerk would do the permitting, and the city attorney would handle the fines. Over time, that has all been reassigned to the police department. So today, our police department is doing the enforcement, selling the permits, and trying to collect the fines. As we all know, we received a report recently from the city finance. We have in excess of $250,000 in outstanding fines. We also received a report in the last roughly 6 months from the police department talking about the current state of parking, and their recommendation at that time was to look for a private contractor, and there's apparently several different ways to do that. That could do all of the above, sell the permits, do the enforcement, and collect the fines. What this resolution is doing is asking the police department to further investigate that, bring it back to the council, with recommendations on the best way and perhaps contractors that we could do a requisite RFP for to provide this service. I think it's time that we look at another way to do this. Police department, of course, always has staffing issues. We have determined in 2020 that the municipal court couldn't do the enforcement. We changed it from a criminal to a civil penalty. So out of the three options that were presented, my recommendation in this resolution is looking at the option of hiring a private contractor. If the council is totally opposed to looking at that option, then I would suggest you vote this down. If you're at least open to the concept, I would appreciate your support that we take a look at it. According to Chief, most communities are now using private contractors for this type of service. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Seagrave. Mr. Brody, anything to add to that?
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I would add is that the report that would have to be generated by the Cheyenne Police Department and submitted to the city council would be due 90 days from the effective date of the resolution. And then there's also language in the resolution that would require the scheduling of a work session for city council and Cheyenne Police Department to then discuss the results of that report. So nothing more than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brody. Any questions for either Mr. Seagrave or Mr. Brody? Hearing none. Dr. Aldridge, go ahead.
Chairman White, through you, I just wanted to say that I appreciate Councilman Seagrave's leadership on this, and it's long overdue. When we have literally $250,000 in outstanding debts, and I don't know if any of you had a chance to look at the list of individuals who owe those dollar amounts. There are, I believe, when I looked at 30-some pages of individuals from across the city who owe. Some of them, I believe the largest one I saw was $1,800. Obviously, nobody's afraid of getting a parking ticket. And I know that there was some discussion in the materials we received about turning those over for collection, which again, just increases our expenses. Well, they take a percentage of that if they're able to collect them, but I think that this is long overdue and something that we just don't have the capacity to be able to tie up our treasurer and our police department with fine enforcement. So I would hope that we would be able to move this forward, get a recommendation from the police department, and put this in the hands of professionals who handle parking situations all the time.
Thanks, Dr. Aldrich. Mr. Roybal?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to let you know, I did peruse that list and I'm not on it.
I looked for my name too. I'm not on it either.
Miracles never cease to amaze me. Comments from council or questions for Mr. Brody or Mr. Seagrave? Hearing none, comments from the public. Welcome, Councilman Laybourne.
Thank you for recognizing I'm a member of the council, not a member of the public. But I'd like to speak a little bit here today as a member of the public and as a downtown property owner. I have a 12-unit apartment house downtown, and my tenants, as well as tenants, for example, at the Netford, which is very nearby and has 16 units, all park on the street. That was the way it was forever. I mean, they never were built with on-site parking. And I know that as the success we seek downtown continues, it's going to be more difficult. And my belief is that more and more of my tenants are going to basically choose to seek private lots or the city lot at 17th and Warren. That's just the reality of the success that we're having and the success that we want to see. So I'm very much aware over many years of the whole parking issue and the way we've handled it. And I would have to say that there's been a lot of attempts over the years that have been partially successful. What we're shooting for is a success rate or a successful situation that is never going to be perfect. That is, we want to have an active downtown. We've built the parking structure, the parking lot. We have the parking structure across the way here. And I certainly understand the police department's efforts. That's a huge step up from marking the tires as they drove by with a piece of chalk. But all of these efforts as they go along definitely reach a certain point where some further understanding and adjustment is necessary. And I was very involved in and participated in that 2016 report. I was disappointed with what came out of it, but I think that the question of privatizing parking is a serious one. And I'm not sure, and I'd like to have some information on this before we act on this Monday night. If there's another community in Wyoming, and certainly I think some of them, Laramie, Sheridan, Casper, are somewhat comparable, that has privatized parking, and what that would be involved in sending out an RFP and making that decision is a pretty serious one that I think we have to really consider. And I hope we take a look at what, for instance, the Downtown Development Authority thinks. I'm assuming that what we'd be talking, are we talking about the Downtown Development Authority District? Are we talking about the zoned central business district? When we say downtown, what does it exactly mean? And how does that come into play? So I definitely think it's time for this thoughtful examination. I hope we all recall our last work session in regard to this matter and how that ended up. So a serious discussion of this issue is in order, and I look forward to participating in that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Other comments from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Escabel.
there's one thing I'm certainly interested in getting out of the study is to find out what our costs are based on to what our revenue is. And from the last time I looked at it, we don't really make a lot of money on this. And if it's revenue neutral, based on what's happening across the Front Range right now, I'm in downtown Fort Collins, Boulder, Greeley. Those places are all automated. But it's still difficult to park down there too. So I like the thought of, Cheyenne being one of those last places in the West where someone could just park for free in the downtown area. And I would like to see that if that's a possibility in the study, and at least give that a try down the road as well.
Thank you, Mr. Escabel. Other comments from the committee? Dr. Aldridge.
Chairman White, through you. In August, I believe it was, or maybe early September, Councilman Laybourne and I did have an opportunity to sit down with the president of the Downtown Merchants Group. And one of the questions that I had posed was the possibility of just eliminating all parking altogether. So it would all be free and there wouldn't be parking limitations. And she expressed that they would be very opposed to that. They really like the 2-hour parking. They just think we need to find a better way to manage it. So while I think it's a noble idea to have free parking, I think that in order to protect some of our merchants and make sure there's spaces available for people to be able to park in that want to patronize their stores, we need to provide some sort of tool or mechanism to not turn all of downtown into employee parking areas. So, for that reason, I'll be voting to support this resolution today.
Thank you, Dr. Aldridge. And just for the record, this is a resolution. So there's no binding agreement that would take effect should we support that. The resolution is just asking for a study and report, not taking any specific policy actions as of yet.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Escobar.
just to follow up, since I wasn't at that meeting, was for Dr. Aldrich or Councilman Laybourne. For the merchants, the time limit was their main concern why they were opposed to downtown being free.
Dr. Aldridge.
Yeah, what she expressed to me was that they actually appreciated the 2-hour parking, and she did have some excellent ideas. One of which was that in our parking areas, we charge right now for a parking permit or a monthly rate, but it's by lot. It's not like if you pay one monthly rate, you can't park in any of the 3 lots. You're limited to one parking lot, a city parking area. And so coming up with something that would be usable between all 3 lots would be really helpful for people who live downtown and work downtown. So they did have some great ideas, and some of you I know were in attendance a year ago last August when we met with downtown business folks. There were 2 different meetings that were held. And so I think that there's definitely an opportunity for some collaboration and some thinking outside the box when it comes to parking.
Any other comments from the committee?
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
the
Escobar.
only thing I see is like in the example that Councilman Laybourne made, the people that live downtown, of course, they're gonna want to park for an extended period of time on the city streets. The people that work and shop downtown, they're not gonna leave their vehicles down there for, I'm not gonna say that my wife would shop for more than 2 hours, but you know, I know there are people that, you know, are gonna spend time down there, like probably go out to lunch, and then they're gonna shop for a couple hours, but I just don't see them leaving their car down there for an extended period of time.
Thank you. Other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of this resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No one's opposed. The resolution moves forward. Next item.
Number 17F, grant award agreement between the City of Cheyenne, Cheyenne Fire Rescue Department and the Wyoming Office of Homeland Security, FEMA, grant programs, Victoria SHSP grant fiscal year 2021 in the amount of $50,414.78 for the Cheyenne Fire Rescue Regional Response Team 7.
Staff report.
Thank you, Chair. Andrew Dykeshorn, Deputy Chief, Cheyenne Fire. So this is kind of a re-up of an old SHSP agreement. The last SHSP 21 expired back in August. We had some leftover funds, and Homeland Security was gracious enough to extend those funds for another year for us. So that is the new grant before you. It does equip and train our special operations folks. Just requesting that this grant be agreed to for the $50,414.78.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Hearing none, comments from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
Move
I
to
would
approve.
move to-
Second.
Okay. I think I heard Mr. Escobar first, so Mr. Roybal seconded that. Any comments from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of this grant award agreement, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No one's opposed. That item moves forward. Next item, please.
Number 17G, memorandum of understanding between the City of Cheyenne and the Saddle Ridge Homeowners Association, care of WGE LLC, for the city to accept ownership of Lot 11, Block 3, Saddle Ridge 16th filing, and tracks 1, 2, and 3 of Saddle Ridge 18th filing, and to outline the design, construction, and maintenance responsibilities for the areas.
Staff report.
Chair and members of the Finance Committee, Jean Vetter, Parks and Greenway Planner. The purpose of this MOU is for the city to accept ownership of Lot 11, Block 3, Saddle Ridge 16th filing, and tracks 1, 2, and 3 of Saddle Ridge 18th filing, and to outline the design, construction, and maintenance responsibilities for these areas. The developer WJE LLC would like to donate Lot 11, Block 2 of Saddle Ridge 16th filing, along with tracks 1, 2, and 3 of Saddle Ridge 18th filing. The developer has created an HOA, Saddle Ridge Master Homeowners Association, Inc., to provide all maintenance of these properties, and the city will maintain the greenway segments as set forth in the MOU. If the city accepts the donations, the developer will construct the final segment of greenway coming out of this development onto Pershing Boulevard and connecting into the existing greenway located on the west side of Christensen Road. I've attached Exhibit A for you to look at. This represents approximately 1,875 feet of 10-foot width greenway path with an estimated cost of $146,000. The city will then reimburse the developer all community facility fees collected from both the 16th and the 18th filing. This represents 189 lots at $400 per dwelling unit, or a total of $75,600. The developer has already completed the greenway segments from Three Hearts Trail south to Pershing, and then the segment along East Pershing Boulevard east to the existing greenway along Christensen. It is understood that this agreement for acceptance of land is made based on historical agreements made for previous filings of the Saddle Ridge development, in which previous staff accepted or were possibly expected by council to accept these parcels. Over the years, the donations from the whole of Saddle Ridge, approximately 353 acres in total size, to include the proposed donations of tracks 1, 2, and 3, equal 38.91 acres of land. By comparison, the donations from the whole of the point, approximately 304 acres in total size, equal 20.57 acres of land. City staff has concerns regarding future obligations for accepting these donations, and that includes the following. It is common in the city of Cheyenne to see homeowners associations go defunct, resulting in detention ponds being purchased at tax sales and new owners wanting to develop these. An example would be South Park Estates, or residents expecting the city to purchase and maintain detention ponds that are no longer maintained by an HOA that has gone defunct. An example would be Highlands Village. It is the staff's opinion that the city should not accept donation of local detention ponds, as these are built to detain runoff for a particular development and not the region. Local detention ponds should be owned and maintained by developers or their HOAs, and easements should be placed on these so that these properties are not purchased in the future at tax sales with purchasers that are determined to develop them. South Park Estates is an example. We will be accepting donation of 2 local detention areas in this MOU. The Greater Cheyenne Greenway is a regional transportation alternative and recreational system that is intended to safely connect neighborhoods to each other and to businesses, schools, and parks. It is appropriate for the Greenway to run by or through a residential development, to connect to other residential developments, parks, schools, and businesses, but not to roll in and around the development. This, in staff opinion, is a benefit to the residents of Saddle Ridge specifically, and not so for the whole of the city. For comparison's sake, the Point, a 304-acre neighborhood, has 1.4 miles of greenway, and Saddle Ridge, a 353-acre neighborhood, will have 3.4 miles of greenway upon final completion. Developer proposed parkland should only be accepted based on the requirements set forth in the most current edition of the City Parks and Recreation Master Plan and Cheyenne Unified Development Code. Minimum requirements include, but are not limited to, a minimum of 50% of the park site being usable for typical recreation facilities, such as sports fields and courts, playgrounds, and other facilities. Of this 50%, the property should have an average slope of 1 to 5%, and all proposed park amenities must accommodate persons with disabilities. According to staff calculations, all areas within tracks 1, 2, and 3 represent a minimum grade of 12.5 and up to 50% slope and do not meet these requirements. The existing Saddle Ridge Park meets these requirements and is a great amenity for the neighborhood. Staff believes that the donation of Lot 11, Block 2 of the Saddle Ridge 16 filing that serves as property use specifically for the Greenway connection to Christensen is important for the city to own or to obtain easement on. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Jeannie. Comments or questions from the committee? Mr. Royball?
Mr. Chair. So in reading this, it says that part of our maintenance is we just got to go 6 feet on each side of the proposed greenway.
Correct.
And then who else mows or takes care of the homeowners or the?
Chair, through you. So the rest of it would be the responsibility of the newly created HOA that they put together. But essentially keep in mind that our greenway is not only mowed on either side, but it's also, we're responsible for snow removal, all maintenance, that kind of thing. So our guys are out there a lot in the wintertime.
Well, just my question is, what's the plan for the areas that they're donating to us? Are we just gonna leave them as wild and not do anything in them, or?
Well, if you look at the MOU, I think Mr. Edwards has stated that he'd like to do some things with it. We just essentially put in the MOU that we want to see what that is, see what that design is before the city would approve it. So it would have to go through like a site plan process to make sure it met ADA requirements, that kind of thing. But it does say that any of those amenities would be maintained by the HOA. We're also asking in the MOU that all of these areas would be signed that all the maintenance is provided by the HOA.
And through you, Mr. Chair, so the city will essentially own these parcels.
Correct.
Okay, and the homeowners association will maintain them. So if something down the road, like you say, when HOA evaporates, do we leave a couple of mowers there and people on the greenway get to mow for a couple of hours? You know,
I'm afraid not. And we've seen it happen in the past where HOAs do go defunct and then it becomes the responsibility of the city if it's owned by the city.
And the other thing is liability. Do we incur any liability for injuries in those?
It's my understanding, and speaking to the city attorney's office, that the liability, we don't have a lot of liability in terms of these properties, but neither would the HOA have a lot of liability. It's more of issue of creating like an attractive nuisance. If we were to put in a sled and advertise sledding hills and kids sled from the top of that hill into the street and got hit by a car, then we could very well be responsible.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? Other questions for Jeannie?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Escabel?
just going back about the grades that you said, the greenway has to be ADA compliant.
Mhm.
So are almost 50 miles of greenway, all of them are under that grade?
I think so. There's things that have happened in the past and I'm not absolutely sure, but we try to meet a 5% or less grade everywhere on the greenway. There might be a couple of places where we have a steep area that was done a long time ago. But as far as I know, and certainly everything since I've been here and in the recent past, we design to below a 5%. So that we always make sure that we meet ADA accessibility standards.
Well, the follow-up would be then, we're promoting a greenway and if someone crashes their bike on the greenway and hurts themselves, how's that different than us promoting a sledding run on that hill?
That might be a better question for our city attorney. I don't know that. I mean, we know that the greenway is relatively safe, and if you fall off your bike, you're taking responsibility for it. I don't know that we're running people going crazy 50 miles an hour down a sledding hill directly into a street. I feel like personally that's a little bit different circumstance.
I think the last time we discussed it, we talked about having an area that was had it marked off for extreme sports, like for example, the hill climbing and bike climbing aspect that a lot of people that are involved in that type of activity like to, they search it out. So we see them going to Kirk County, and we've talked about doing it on the Belvoir as well. But having an area like that was in the city would also have an attraction to a certain sect of the people that live here. So I don't know if that's an area that we might want to look at in the future with that area.
Yeah, and Chair, through you, this MOU is just to accept the property. I don't think we're proposing within this MOU, we're not proposing anything for the properties at this point. Mr. Edwards is here. He can give you probably a better sense of what he has in mind for future stuff with his HOA. But we're not proposing anything at this particular time. It's really a matter of whether we accept the donations or not.
Other questions for Ms. Vedder?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Aldred, we're not in public comment yet, I don't think. We're in staff report and questions from the committee for, yes, Dr. Aldrich, go ahead.
Chairman White, through you. I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. So we believe that this 1,875 feet of 10-foot wide concrete path would cost about $146,000. And then we would turn around and give the developer $75,600, which would leave us with an expense, I believe, if I've calculated correctly, $70,400, I believe. And so my question is this: when I look at what it would cost us to maintain this and these common areas, or these, I know it says that the homeowners association would be responsible for maintenance, but we all know how that's gone in our community, not so spectacularly. So I am thinking about how long would it take us to go through $70,000 or, or to recoup that 75,000 we would be turning over to the developer if we had to go in and start maintaining this because the homeowners association had gone defunct. I don't know if any of you have been out in that area, but I've been out in that area and I know that there's a lot of cactus that's out there. I don't know, I have not been out there when the snow has been snowing and it's been blowing. I don't believe that there's probably enough snow that stays on that ridge or on those hills to give optimal sledding ability because of the way the wind tends to carry the snow there. But I have some real concerns. I appreciate the generosity and the idea, but I don't think, I think we would be ill-advised to accept it at this point in time. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Aldrich. If there are no other questions from the committee for Ms. Vedder, are there comments from the public? Ms. Nemechek.
Vicky Nemechek, Public Works. My understanding is, and I don't have a copy of that agreement, is that we would be accepting ownership of 2 local detention areas that would eventually probably end up in city hands. I have a problem with that because we accept regional ponds. This would set a precedent for these types of agreements that would basically ensure that we will end up with all local detention areas eventually. And we do not have the resources to do that. So thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from the public? Press the button. There you
There
go.
we are. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for your consideration of this item today. There's a couple things I feel I need to correct here. And first, a little bit of history, a little bit of recent history.
Sir,
Yes.
I'm sorry, could you
Sure.
identify yourself for the record,
Oh, excuse me.
please?
Yes. John Edwards with Saddle Ridge Subdivision, WJE LLC.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sorry about that. So a couple things, starting with some recent history. This is actually a follow-up item to an item that city council approved several months ago, which directed staff to draft this MOU and most importantly, accept ownership of tracks 1, 2, and 3 in the 18th filing. And I believe it's lot 6, block 3, Saddle Ridge 16th filing, which for clarification, that is a greenway corridor that runs north of Pershing Boulevard. This process has been pretty frustrating for us, to be honest with you, because we've owned this particular area that is now known as Saddle Ridge 8th through the 18th filing since 2014. And in late 2014, 2015, we went through extensive planning efforts with City Parks Department, where we were essentially asked to donate X amount of open space property, and also directed, and at that time, the Parks Department very much wanted a diagonal connection of the greenway from the northwestern portion of this area that's now known as Saddle Ridge 8th through the 18th filing, down to the intersection of Christensen Road, the relatively newly built Christensen Road, and Pershing Boulevard. So we designed that. We were very transparent with park staff at that time. We actually toured the site with them. We told them about our vision. One of the other things that's been a little bit frustrating for us is we're really excited and proud to bring this park to our city. I was born and raised here, and I will know of no other city park that has these characteristics or these recreational options and even educational options as it pertains to the future elementary school that's projected to be built just south of the main feature of this park area. I'm going to kind of jump around here a little bit. I want to just address some things that I heard. So let me go back. This is a follow-up item to something that was already approved by council. And essentially what we're talking about is the city retaining ownership of these open space parcels, which is really important to everybody. For two main reasons and others. One that was kind of touched on was the governmental immunity aspect of it. For the type of recreational options that we have planned, and it does include sledding in the winter and mountain bike trails in the summer, it's absolutely critical to have governmental immunity. The city enjoys governmental immunity for all of the greenway. The city would be under the same risk if anybody were to wreck their bike anywhere on the city greenway or in any other of the city parks in the city. And it is a robust governmental immunity that's used by tens of thousands of municipalities all around the nation. It's very robust. But again, looking at the natural topography of what will be these open space parcels, going back to our original vision, again, we wanted to bring in something to the city that we felt is not currently here. And one of those is sledding options in the winter. I don't know where parents take their kids. I unfortunately, I don't have kids yet. But I have a lot of friends that do, and I don't know where they go, where they have any of those options. Similarly to mountain biking trails, and to envision the type of mountain biking trails that we're talking about, I would direct your attention to the Northern City Park that's around Meadowlark Elementary School. There's kind of some informal mountain bike trails. They're 2 or so feet wide, soft surface trails that would kind of meander through the area. But as we go to council, I wish I would have brought a topographic map of the open space area. I will bring that to council to share with everybody. There's a couple areas in particular of this open space area that frankly, we could have developed nice residential view lots, a pretty substantial area. And again, working with the previous staff at that time, we felt they shared the same excitement that we had for what we wanted to create there. And essentially, in addition to the sledding and the mountain biking options, we wanted the city to be able to enjoy the same view corridor that we maximized as many lots as we could to enjoy on the private side. And so one of the features of this park, it contains the hilliest area, if you will. We have a picnic area designed near the top of one of these peaks, kind of tucked in behind it. We envision fencing off the steeper areas around it. But again, that's for the public to have an offshoot pathway off of the greenway. It's envisioned to be a soft surface trail at that time. We do have a design that keeps that whole soft surface trail up to the picnic area under 5%, which is also an ADA requirement. As far as ADA requirements go, there is some leeway when you enter into natural areas that have more aggressive topography. You are allowed a certain variance which we have experience with in the past along Whitney Road, for example. There's so that kind of came up. I can tell you, I guarantee you, there's many areas around the city that exceed 5%. Another couple examples would be north of Story Boulevard. Just east of Converse and Story on the north side there where there's that big retaining wall and that goes up. Again, I mentioned along Whitney Road. I know because we built it, it exceeds those percentages, and we worked with city staff at that time and researched and became more familiar with ADA requirements. I want to jump back over to the definition of the detention pond, which is technically known as Tract 3 of the 18th filing. It was communicated that the city would be taking 2 detention areas. That's not entirely accurate. They would be taking a detention pond, which is located at the northwestern corner of Christensen Road in Pershing, which is by definition a regional detention pond. We had to design it and engineer it to a size that handled a significant amount of the newly built Christensen Road overpass project. That's a high amount of volumes that comes into that storage, meeting one of the definitions of regional. The other is to take care of direct and manage Cheyenne Hills Church detention, which comes through the second quote detention area, which is a 35-foot wide, about 110-foot corridor that's going to be piped underground from the Cheyenne Hills project down through the main low area of this particular open space that we're talking about. Again, I'm going to bring a topographic map to council, but we're really talking about tracks 1, 2, and 3 in the 18th filing. A minute ago, or at the start of this, we touched on the 4th track, which is technically a greenway corridor there north of Pershing and east of Dixon Drive. Tract 1 and 3 are the detention areas. Again, 1 is only a pond. Tract 3 is the only pond. Tract 1 is a piped underground conveyance from Cheyenne Hills Church down into the main open space area that we're really talking about as far as recreational opportunities, and that is Tract 2. Tract 2 of the 18th filing. Tract 2 is by far the largest. It has the most attractive recreational open space features. So I wanted to clarify that it is by definition a regional detention pond, and we had to work with the city, hand in hand with the city, when Christensen Road was being designed. And I don't need to tell you how difficult a process that was, how many design considerations went back and forth. But so I want to talk a little bit about the maintenance component. Well, let me touch on a couple other things historically. So we started the Saddle Ridge subdivision in 2007. I believe we broke ground, and by design, we did not want to have an HOA. We found that many people share that desire and have come into Saddle Ridge in some cases for that reason. So now we've developed under a certain philosophy, a certain protocol with the city. Each time we donate a section of open space, we would work with one of these MOUs. And if you look back historically, this one varies very minimally from previous versions. I want to talk about the city's contribution to the Greenway as well, if this is approved. This roughly $75,000, which would be the city's contribution, does not just come out of the city's pocket. It's generated by improved lots that Saddle Ridge generates. And each time a building permit is taken out for an improved lot, $400 for that lot goes into a pot, which then we are respectfully asking, as we have on previous filings, that a portion of that goes to the improvements that will be enjoyed by the public. Again, I know I'm kind of skipping around a little bit. I want to go back. I skipped a little bit a minute ago about the two main reasons that we discussed several months ago during the first city council process. We have governmental immunity, why it's key for the city to own these. The other is for public enjoyment. We feel, and I mean, to this day, right now, there's people out there all the time we catch walking their dogs. We know for a fact, by virtue of the city greenway system, the existing residents, but also the recreational components that, again, we're very proud and excited to bring to the city. We feel like many people from the public are going to gravitate to this area. And if the city were not to own these, which again was already agreed to, there could be a big problem with the HOA saying, hey, you can't come in here and use these features that aren't available elsewhere in the city. So it's, as far as I also want to push back a little bit on the sentiment that many HOAs fail and they end up in city hands. I understand that there may have been, which I wasn't aware of, but they were mentioned, there may have been one or two of those instances, but during the last cycle, myself and Charles Bloom, and I would encourage anybody else to do that, to look nationwide at how many HOAs actually fail. Additionally, since we are setting up an HOA, which varies from all previous filings in the 18th filing, which was tough to have to adjust this at the 11th hour. Again, we fully respect that there's a new administration and new ideas and everything, but it's pretty difficult when you design that together and you get to the end stage and now we're doing something that the other portions of the neighborhood don't have. It's been very difficult, but we do get to set our own rates and this are our own monthly dues, I should say. And this ties into the maintenance responsibilities. As I shared earlier, we've had this particular property since about 2014. And I think it was Dr. Aldridge that referenced that there's actually cactus out there. It's classified as high desert, and we have not had to mow or maintain this open space area one time since we've had it. There are cactus out there. There's not high vegetation that is a fire hazard. So for those reasons, the only reason we set up this HOA was for the maintenance component. And we've gotten some quotes, we've done some preliminary maintenance numbers, but we feel confidently that we're going to be in the $10 to $20 per month fee for each one of these HOA members as they come on board. And we're not going to start charging those monthly fees until there's more saturation in the neighborhood as well. That's in the HOA document, those projected fees. The HOA is set up. We stand by our pledge for the HOA to maintain everything in perpetuity, and we have all the confidence in the world that's possible because the numbers prove it out. So we're really talking about an area that's going to be left 98% open, with the exception of the picnic area. The greenway, again, as far as the design of the greenway going through the property, that was something that was important to the Parks Department that we accommodated at the time to have that connection down to the now new intersection of Pershing and Christensen. Let's see, I'm happy to answer any questions. Like I say, I wanted to clarify some of those very key things. The definition of regional detention pond. So again, we're just, this is kind of a head scratcher because we're so excited about this. We're so proud to bring this to the community and just not understanding quite some of the pushback, but can I answer any questions?
Mr. Edwards, if you could stand by, we'll move forward and then have if there are questions from council members, we'll do those under committee comments. So, but if you could hold on a minute and we can see if there's other comments from the public.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Are there other comments from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve in an amount not to exceed $75,600.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded. Are there comments or questions from members of the committee?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Escabel.
the one I had about from Director Nemechek about setting precedents on detention ponds, haven't we already done that? Locally.
Ms. Nemechek, do you want to make sure your comments are on the record?
Vicky Nemechek, Public Works. My point is that if we legally enter into an agreement that states that we're gonna own it, and then if we don't own it, and if we own it and the HOA goes defunct, and that's an understanding at this point. I mean, we've all just been discussing it. The understanding is the city owns it. So if the HOA goes defunct, the city will have to maintain it. That is my understanding of what Ms. Vetter explained. So to me, that seems like we're setting a precedent that says that's what we'll do in the future. Just my opinion.
Follow up only if we purchase or have it donated to the city, but not if it's abandoned.
An abandoned one, Vicky Nemechek, Public Works. Abandoned is an entirely different situation if it's owned by an HOA or maintained by an HOA and owned by the HOA. That's a legal question that has to be somehow managed and decided upon. But this is, we're setting out with the understanding that we'll eventually take it.
I'm sorry, just to add on to that, it reminded me of one thing. We're following, at least in terms of the Point case, we have a model that we're following there where the city owns several open space parcels in there and the HOA maintains it. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions from members of the committee? Mr. Roybal.
Looks like Mr. Cobb would like to speak, so you would approach the podium and
Chairman White, through you, I just, after listening to this, I wanted to make sure that we had a full understanding here. So I'm going to say that Mr. Edwards, while correct that it would be considered by definition a regional pond with that tract, I want to be clear that Christensen Road doesn't dump into this at all. It goes down to the pond that's north of the Lowe's Distribution Center. That's the regional facility. This one does, however, have pass-through volume just like anything else. But we don't use the roadway detention is all on the south. There's a pipe underneath the railroad tracks that goes directly into that facility. And this facility itself also dumps into that system that then goes into the other regional ponds. So by definition, yes, regional, but by our definition, not so regional, because it doesn't have multiple subdivisions dumping into it. It's that subdivision. And while the church property to the north does go in through it, it's a bypass, just like anywhere else in the city when we have subdivisions that are adjacent to each other. I hope that clears that up and doesn't muddy the water even more.
Thanks for that clarification, Mr. Cobb. Mr. Edwards?
Yes, excuse me. Sorry. I respectfully disagree that none of the Christensen water goes into this pond. And I would also say that, and I would be curious on Mr. Cobb's comment that it was sized accordingly to handle those additional flows.
One thing here, I'm not going to allow getting into a back and forth. So if there's some differences of opinion on this, and obviously it sounds like there are, I would suggest communicating and then maybe come back when this item is back up for discussion on Monday night. But I don't want to get into a tennis match here at the committee meeting. Mr. Roybal? Other comments or questions from the committee? Mr. Escabel, do you have one?
Well, I was just ready to vote.
Oh, okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of the memorandum of understanding, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed?
No.
This item moves forward with Dr. Aldridge voting no. Next item, please.
Number 18E, consideration of bid number E-4-24 for furnishing 16 new four-door 2023-2024 model utility police interceptor SUVs for the Cheyenne Police Department.
Sorry, staff report.
Good afternoon. I'm Joel Hickerson with the Police Department. Chairman White, members of the committee, following a request for quotes to purchase 16 new police vehicles, all of which would be Ford Explorer Interceptors, consisting of 13 standard marked patrol vehicles, 2 marked K9 vehicles, and 1 traffic enforcement vehicle. We did receive 3 bids. Those bids came from Young Ford of Ogden, Utah, Dana Safety Supply of Helena, Montana, and Ken Garf here in Cheyenne. Based on the in-state bidder preference, Ken Garf is the prospective awardee of that bid at a initial cost of $1,273,931, along with a surcharge consistency just over $191,000. Grand total of $1,465,020.65. We are requesting approval of that bid to move forward with purchasing an upfit.
Thank you, sir. Stand by. Questions or comments from the committee? Mr.
Yes, sir.
Royball?
The, did they give you a timeline on how soon these will arrive?
Chairman White, through you, that is a matter of some speculation with the UAW strike and the ongoing post-COVID supply chain issues. The general timeline we're getting is around 450 days, bearing in mind the last time we were told 450 days, it ended up being closer to 500 days. So certainly greater than a year, sir.
Okay, and then just to follow up, when these hit the ground, or with the 1.4 million, is that lights, sirens, radios, everything?
Chairman White, through you, yes, Councilman Roybal, that would be for the purchase of the vehicles themselves and the full upfit to include police radios, sirens, lighting systems, transport cages, the intake fan systems for the K9 vehicles, radar systems, all of it.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Escobar?
You, Mr. Chair, so we're not gonna get them all at once, so we could get 2 here for theirs along the way as they come in.
Chairman White, through you, generally speaking, what happens, they're provided en masse. They are provided initially by the dealership, which would be through Ken Garf. And then after that, they would be provided to Bearcom, which is an upfitter in Evans, Colorado. We've been dealing with Bearcom on a consistent basis for at least the last 20 years. Once they get them and get them all upfitted, we go in for review and approval. And then we get the vehicles once we confirm that they are spec and standard through the police department as well as through vehicle fleet. En masse, all at once.
Other questions from committee?
Yes, sir.
Hearing none. Oh, sorry, Dr. Aldridge.
Chairman White, through you, I was just curious as to whether this dollar amount includes also the signage, if you will, on the exterior of the cars, and if these will also carry a some sort of marking that these were paid for out of the funds that they're paid for out of. So I know on some of the back of our police cars, it says, paid for with 1% special sales tax money or whatever. So I'm just curious, since this is coming out of 1% sales tax, if these will be marked accordingly so that taxpayers know what their dollars are going for.
Chairman White, through you. Yes, that is correct. The full graphics upfit will be included. That does include the provided by 1% optional sales tax sticker on the back and all of the police markings, including the Remember 911 markings as a emergency reminder.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Roybal.
Do we have any Crown Victorias left in the fleet?
Chairman White, through you, that's a good question. And yes, actually, the intent is with this bid and the bid next year that we will be fully retiring those. I personally have been a fan of the Crown Victorias. They've been very dependable for law enforcement for generations. However, in Cheyenne, where we have winter for 8 months a year, those rear-wheel drive vehicles are not particularly functional. The Ford Explorer Interceptors are all-wheel drive, and they have proved to be much more maneuverable. So
Okay, so are we gonna put one in the Public Safety Center lobby like we did the Harley Davidson?
It's actually not a bad idea.
I can run that by the chief of police and see if that's something that we can bear on the floor load bearing wise. It used to be a vehicle dealership, so we can maybe try.
Okay.
If there are no other questions from committee,
Mr. Chairman, I do have purchasing manager TJ Bartleby on. I'm just guessing he's maybe gonna provide a little like additional information.
okay.
This TJ, can you hear me all right, Chairman White?
Yes, we can. TJ, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to step on Lieutenant Hickerson's toes, but just to clarify one comment that he had to respond to to Councilman Roybal. The cost is inclusive of everything in the vehicle except for the mobile Motorola radios that will be purchased and procured separately. So there will be a slight amount above this cost to purchase those radios, but their installation is included, but the city still needs to procure those. So I just for the sake of fully answering that question, thank you.
Thanks for that information. Are there comments from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the bid from Ken Garf, Cheyenne, Wyoming, in an amount not to exceed $1,465,020.65.
Second.
Sorry, it's stuck in my throat.
I noticed that. It's been moved and seconded. Are comments or questions from the committee on this big consideration? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Did we lose Dr. Aldrich?
She's still there.
Okay.
I said aye.
Oh, didn't hear you, Dr. Aldrich. Thank you. No one's opposed. That item moves forward. Next item, please.
Thank you all so much.
Number 18F, consideration of bid number E-5-24 for furnishing one new 2023-2024 motorized articulated trash compactor for the city of Cheyenne landfill.
Staff report.
Craig Valoy, Public Works. This is a bid for a motorized articulated trash compactor for the landfill. We received one bid and declined the options. And with trade-in, it came to $882,180,000, and with a potential future surcharge contingency of $158,577. We get a grand total of $1,040,757, and I would recommend approval out of the solid waste funds.
Thanks, Craig. Stand by. Questions or comments for Mr. Lavoy? Comments from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the bid from Wyoming Machinery Company, Cheyenne, Wyoming, in the amount not to exceed $1,040,757.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments or questions from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No one's opposed. We do have one more item for our agenda today. Go, Jen, if you could please read that item.
Contract modification number 1 to contract number 7814 between the city of Cheyenne and the Wyoming Department of Transportation for the amended and restated cooperative agreement for project ARSCT and 561A02 US 30 Pershing Boulevard to Christensen Road, Cheyenne Streets, Laramie County.
Staff report.
Good afternoon, Chairman White, members of the Finance Committee, Tom Cobb, City Engineer. Looks like I get all the controversial ones today. Before you, as Jennifer stated, it's an amended and restated a cooperative agreement. This one passed in front of you in August. This is for US 30 reconstruction. And again, it was to implement portions of the US 30 corridor study that the MPO completed in 2020. The reason we've expedited it to you through other business is there was a little bit of a delay with the AG's office and also Whiteout has moved out to the bidding. So the purpose of the agreement, obviously to amend it, I just wanted to follow in my paragraph, I'm going to follow. I'm sorry, I didn't hand this out to you earlier. The elements included for us that are our participatory costs are the stamped and colored concrete in the median on US 30, removal of portions of the existing greenway and associated features, the new greenway path that will be in place with the construction of the pedestrian underpass, and then installation of lighting at US 30 at Christensen. Also, they are realigning a portion of the south leg of US 30 at Whitney Road. The reason for the reinstated agreement is basically three things. Whiteout updated their anticipated costs from their contracts and estimates division, and it exceeded on the original agreement the 20% allowance that we have. So that pushed it forward to you as well. And then the pedestrian underpass that I had actually included in our portion of the agreement when I stated it to you in committee, Whiteout had not included it in their actual agreement. So that was missing, but I again accounted for it in the money that you'd previously seen. The last item is that Whiteout added $200,000 of federal enhancement money to be applied to the cost of the pedestrian underpass. So that was a good thing. The total portion of the projected costs went from around $2,823,800 to their estimated cost of $3,582,006, which would be an increase of $758,206 to the city. So here's the good part though, by waiting, even though the agreement won't change the way this is, the letting was just revealed last week and our cost shares are going to be a total of approximately $2,927,450 or only a $103,650 increase. That was a load. So even though the agreement shows more, the actual numbers actually came in only roughly 104,000 more. The three funding sources for the project include the optional 1% sales tax, 23 to 26, fifth penny, the 6 penny 2021 specific purpose tax for Greenway, and the 6 penny 2017 specific purpose tax, which was Christensen Road. That's the portion of that lighting that I discussed at Christensen Road in US 30. I've attached the summary in the back for you to look at it. It is not part of their agreement with WYDOT, but it sort of breaks down the total cost for each of those pieces. And again, I don't have the final numbers yet in front of me because they just had the bid letting last week, but all that'll be adjusted when everybody's participatory cost, but just wanted to give you a reference. And with that, I'll take any questions that you might have. And by the way, I also have Ryan Shields here from WYDOT District Construction Engineer. If you have any questions for WYDOT.
Thanks, Tom. And that certainly is good news that the increase only was $104,000. Go ahead, Mr. Roybal.
Just the question, 104,000, do we have that?
Mr. White, through you. Yes, sir, we do.
Other questions for Mr. Cobb?
This probably isn't germane to this, but good job on Yellowstone. They're doing a heck of a job out there.
Mr. White, through you. Thank you. Appreciate it. We're trying to get her done. It's coming together really fast.
Comments from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of this contract modification, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No one's opposed. That item moves forward. That is everything on our agenda today. Hope you all have a good day. This meeting is adjourned.